Danger is afoot.
No one in Salem is safe tonight.
Dance.
Yeah.
Hello, and welcome to episode 5 of I'm Thinking of Watching Things. It's episode 5, guys. That makes this a real show. We lasted over a month. It's a real thing now.
And we're doing our first non-Netflix movie too. Well, half.
True.
Wow,
Which is
really expanding our horizons. Yeah.
we're branching out here. We're watching. This is actually. I've been kind of like when I made like a schedule like a month and a half ago. Peek behind the curtains for the listeners of what movies we'd be looking at, and this was the week that I was most excited about because I love horror and I love comedies, and October is always an exciting month for me. So today we're gonna have a double bill of 2 new horror comedy movies that came out: Adam Sandler's Huby Halloween and Jim Cummings' The Wolf of Snow Hollow. Devin is joining us in replacement of Brooke, who watched Huby Halloween just now, right? You just finished it. So Devin's gonna be like fresh off the presses with his takes. But to start us off, to get us some introductions going, guys, what's your favorite horror comedy? We'll go with Alicia first.
Okay. Favorite horror comedy. I will go with, it's maybe a tie between Jennifer's Body, which is kind of the basic answer. Sorry, Arjun, I don't know if that face means I just took your answer. But it's undergone like a newfound appreciation recently, so it's nice to talk about it. But it really is, I feel like Megan Fox, like, at her best, or like us allowing her to like actually have fun and do cool things. And the whole cast is great, but the writing is like whip smart, and it's just like really fun to watch. But also I would say Creep, because Mark Duplass knows how to like really give you that uncomfortable sense of like humor and fear at the same time, and he does that very well in that film. So yeah.
Nice. What about you, Arjun?
Yeah, I was gonna say Jennifer's Body, which I don't know. I haven't seen it since middle school, so I don't know if that actually holds up. But me being somebody who was 13 and very attracted to Megan Fox, it was like one of my favorite movies at the time. But I guess I'll pivot and say Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which is a B movie from the late 80s, which I enjoy quite deeply. I was just recommended it by a friend about a year ago, and threw it on, not really expecting much, but ended up just having a great time watching it. As you could probably gather from the title, it is about killer clowns that visit from outer space, killer alien clowns, and it is absurd and a really good time. So there's my answer.
Nice. I saw that on Netflix a while ago, I feel like, and I almost watched it, but no.
I'm like not the biggest fan of horror movies in general, so I probably have like a smaller pool that I'm choosing from here. Like I was tempted to even say Get Out. I don't know if that like firmly like counts as a comedy, because like I don't know, kind of more on the border, I guess. But Killer Clowns from Outer Space is pretty hysterical, if not always for intentional reasons. So
Get Out would have been on brand with your poster back there.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even realize that. Yeah, there you go.
Devin, favorite horror comedy?
Okay, so I actually changed my choice from earlier because I was inspired. It's easily Cabin in the Woods. How did I not think of it sooner? It's brilliant. It's taking some cues from Evil Dead, Sam Raimi. It's like embracing the corniness of horror movies and just taking the tropes, using them to have a little bit of fun, if no one's ever seen it, I would recommend you watch it and don't take it too seriously at all. Like it's supposed to be overly ridiculous, very crude, like early 2000s movie. You got your classic characters. You got like the stoner, the hot girl, the virgin who survives. It's perfect. I don't know what else to say about it, but like go watch it. Highly recommend.
I like that movie a lot. And that's like a weird, like, post-Thor Chris Hemsworth doing like some dumb stuff, and he just like gets to be comedic. It's great.
He's so good at comedy.
He is. They need to let him be funny.
Yeah.
He was my favorite part of the Ghostbusters 2016, which is
Himbo
like sad.
Supreme. Yeah.
Yeah. He's the platonic ideal of a himbo, I think. In those movies. My name is Caleb. My favorite horror comedy, I was gonna say Evil Dead or Evil Dead 2, but I think I'm gonna say something that might get me canceled, which is Sleepaway Camp, because that movie may be just the funniest, the most I've laughed at like any movie that I've watched by myself, because comedy's always better watching it with a group of friends, but I watched that movie by myself and I was just cackling at parts. Before I would recommend it to anybody, I would say that it's absolutely, like, you have to go into it knowing that it is every ism or phobia you can think of. Absolutely racist, absolutely homophobic, absolutely 1000% transphobic. And the way you enjoy that movie is by laughing at how stupid those ideas are. And I think you can have a fun time with it as long as you go in with that knowledge. And then the sequels like understand that the original was funny, and they sort of try to be comedic, but I think the first one really didn't know that it was being hilarious. And I feel like those movies are a treat. Let's launch right into Huby Halloween. Auteur Adam Sandler's latest and greatest that Netflix is giving to us in our moment of need in October, in October of 2020, when we're starving for content. We are gifted Huby Halloween. What did you guys think? Just on the like it, dislike it. What's the general consensus here?
I don't know how to answer that question. Sorry, go ahead, Arjun.
I'm kind of in the same boat, I guess. I don't know. I think Sandler might be back, but at the same time, I can't, like, in good conscience call this a good movie as much as I might have enjoyed certain sections of it. Like, it was so stupid, but I don't know. I don't know.
Alicia, did you have any thoughts on it?
I don't, like, the whole time I was watching this movie, I felt like I was on something, and I felt like everybody in this movie was on something. And it was really just kind of like a whirlwind of something. And like every fifth line made me actually like snort. Like I had a like physical it was like every once in a while there would be like a joke that just was so like out of left field and like not like barely a joke that I like just kind of started to cry. But I would say I don't mind that I watched it. It got me into the Halloween spirit, I guess, and it made me it's like psychedelics without the drugs. So yeah.
Interesting. Psychedelics without the drugs. Devin, your thoughts?
Yeah, so the foundation of this film is fart, shit, and piss, basically. That is all the humor that you'll get out of this. There are so many uncomfortable sex jokes, and I can understand laughing because it's just not funny, and then you're laughing at the fact that it's not funny. That's what really is going on here. But yeah, I absolutely despised this. I felt so numb the entire time watching it. Like, I lost the Halloween spirit watching this movie. Like,
see, Devin, when you said you were gonna have a hot take, I thought you were gonna like profess your love for Huby Halloween. That's what I was expecting.
no,
was for you to Enola Holmes this.
Oh no. Huby is constantly getting threatened for no reason. He seems to be like it's not okay to bully someone like this in 2020. It's very hard to watch. It just makes me sad, if anything.
Yeah, I would say I was expecting, like, I haven't seen a lot of like Happy Madison stuff, so I didn't know he was gonna do the voice, And when he did do it, I was expecting to just feel like excruciating pain, just like, I hate this, this is annoying, I want it to stop. But it was more like a deep sadness for this person who the politics of this are very strange in 2020. Like, this man's condition is not, there's just a lot of questions there, but it was very emotionally affecting in that way, I would say unintentionally. I'll stop now.
Well, I would say I have probably seen more of the Happy Madison stuff than I would have liked to. I tried getting through as much of the Netflix stuff as I could earlier this year, and like Murder Mystery and The Do-Over and Sandy Wexler are probably among like some of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, you know, Sandler mailing it in, like not even really looking like he's having fun, and like to your point, like, you know, a lot of the jokes are, you know, Puby Dubois and Boner Donor, and like these things that just shouldn't be funny at all, especially coming from the writing of a 54-year-old man who seems to be sort of stuck in the brain of an 8-year-old. But there's something about sort of returning to this crass, like early 2000s humor in a sort of way that, you know, is framed as much as it was sort of a senseless bullying that doesn't make any sense within the world we're living in. It sort of is like an update, I feel like, on Sandler's old brand of humor that I don't think has really been there in his most recent movies. And I couldn't help but laugh, even though I knew at the bottom of my heart that it was just like terrible and probably had no merits. I just, there's just something about it. And especially like the comedic actors who I think were kind of in their element and just letting themselves go a little bit, like Maya Rudolph. Anytime she was on screen, I was losing it. Like, I don't even know what to say.
The Hubie Doobie, careful. That was one of the snort moments for me.
There are good bits that throughout it that I have listed, because let me paint y'all a picture, right? So let me paint you a scene. It's, I don't know, it's probably on my Letterboxd. It was like a Thursday, maybe. I think it was Thursday of this past week. And I just had a stressful day of work. I had a lot of deadlines and I was struggling to complete them, so I had to work late. And I finish, and it's like the sun is going down. I've been staring at a screen all day. I'm like, God, I have to watch this Adam Sandler movie later. Like, Jesus Christ, this is gonna be a shitty day. And so I'm like, okay, screw that. I'm gonna go take a walk. And so I take a walk, and I find this park that I didn't know existed. And it's fall, and the leaves are falling, and like the trees had already started to change, and then the sundown comes, and I'm like in ecstasy. I'm like relaxing. I'm like, this is fall. Wait, this is great. I'm starting to come out of my like stressful day. I come back into my apartment, and I pop open a pumpkin beer, and I sit down with Huby Halloween. And that was one of the most soothing experiences of my life. I was expecting to despise this movie. I feel like I was like 99% sure that I was going to be the hater of this movie, but I'm going to be the defender of it, because something about how dumb this was very relaxing to me. And I think I give the relaxing, like that attribute, I think I'll give it to the color palette of the movie. For some reason, it was just so like it was just the warmest oranges, like the just like fun purples, like the best Halloween colors that was just like handed to me on a plate, and I just got to sip my pumpkin beer and like revel in the being in fall. And something about there's a lot of bits in here, there's a lot of jokes that did get me, but we can read those later, because I have a question about those later. But yeah, I don't know, I found this to be a very, like, I was just so relaxed after it, and I'm wondering like why that was, like if it was just that day, the serendipitous nature of that day, or what. I don't know.
Yeah, and I will say there is one thing in particular, and I don't feel like a movie like this you need to necessarily say spoilers, but there was something that genuinely took me by surprise in this movie, and it's like a certain cameo that happens about like an hour and a half into the
Spoil
movie.
it. Spoil
And
it.
there's a certain scene with an actor, a very famous, high profile, or not an actor, a celebrity, I guess, eating a sandwich that is probably like the hardest I've laughed at anything this entire year. And I can't really explain why, but him eating that sandwich with like the sort of elements of the sandwich dribbling down his shirt was just for some reason absolutely hysterical to me. And just like the kind of ability to be just totally shocked like that in the middle of a movie, I feel like I've kind of lost recently. Like, so many of the great movies we were supposed to get this year that I'm like kind of on the edge of my seat for, we haven't gotten. And I feel like every time I turn on a movie, I'm kind of like, dreading it in a sense, with the exception of a few big ones we've gotten. And then sort of for something like that to happen where an hour and a half into the movie I could just be totally thrown for a loop like that, it was just incredible. And there were certain moments where I was the same, Caleb, just like totally thrown into a state of complete relaxation and happiness because of like, what the fuck am I watching, and how did somebody get paid this much money to do this? It's wonderful.
Yeah, Sandler's hustle to just make dumb stuff and with his friends, like it's been talked about to death, but man, he's living the life. He truly is. I like wish that he would have gotten that Oscar nod for Uncut Gems so he could be satisfied. Like he'll probably do a couple more serious roles in his life. I don't want him to do that. I want him to just make stuff like this. But I will preface it with stuff like you mentioned Murder Mystery. Murder Mystery is one of the worst things I've ever seen. And I want to ask you guys, A, have you seen Murder Mystery or any of the other like Sandler, like quote unquote bad comedies, like not Happy Gilmore or Click or the ones that people like, but have you guys seen any of his like bad comedies? And what is the difference here? I guess Devin doesn't see a difference. These are the same for Devin. But I like, there's something like it's the same brand of comedy, but just something was so bad about Murder Mystery, and I'm not like, I don't know the difference. I can't distill them.
I really haven't seen many at. Oh, I saw Bedtime Stories at like a sleepover in like 2009 or something. And I mean that was before I like understood what film was, so we watched it and then it was over, and then we kind of had inside jokes referencing it for like the next couple months. And yeah, so I have zero commentary on Bedtime Stories, but other than that I feel like it's just 50 First Dates, which I used to really like, and if I were to watch it now I'd probably say this is very bad, but I still have like affection for it. I mean the premise is fucked up. Everything about it, from what I remember, is not great. But I have warm feelings towards 50 First Dates. I also adore Drew Barrymore, so that's probably part of it.
The way you feel about Murder Mystery is probably the way I feel about The Do-Over, so I get that.
Devin, what were you gonna say?
Oh god, I'm just like looking through this menagerie of bullshit right now. I've seen Grown Ups, regrettably. I've seen the second one also. Let's see, what else do we got here? That weird Western one he did for Netflix. I've seen that one.
Ridiculous Six, right?
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
Was that good? Did you hate it?
What do you think? How do you think?
You hate it? Well, is there any Sandler that works for you?
Is there what?
Is there any Sandler that works for you?
Oh, I mean, like, I know he like always plays relatively dumb characters. I don't know why he chooses to do this, but I think one time he did it. It was actually very charming. Punch Drunk Love. I don't know if I would say that's a Sandler movie, really, because it's got elements of it in there with him playing someone who's like very dumb. But I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to think of like good Sandler movies now that I'm really trying, because you guys said Click was a good one, and I almost threw up in my mouth. I actually hate Click so much. I
think I haven't seen Click, so I can't attest to it, but I think people generally like think that one's fun. Like, right? Or am I wrong on that consensus?
I don't know if I haven't seen it in a really long time, but it's the one that makes people cry, like myself included, and I think Arjun included too. And like, I guess everything's relative, right? Like in the Sandler canon, that is upper tier, so I suppose, yeah. But I can think of like
Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison, like, the ones that, I guess named his production company are probably my two favorites from the early career Sandler. And I don't think saying Punch Drunk Love isn't a Sandler movie is necessarily giving him enough credit, because like as much as I think that movie works because of PTA being, like probably like one of the most talented directors alive, I think like he weaponizes Sandler in a certain way that I think Uncut Gems does too, where it's like he is so good at being the sort of angry, absurdist, like sort of out of his own element personality that I think really works in Happy Gilmore, where it's just like, this is not a man you will ever meet in your day-to-day life, but he sort of harnesses like a male anger and sort of like unhingedness that I think really works in those movies, and I think it works in his stand-up as well. And I haven't seen his SNL season, but I am under the impression it's sort of a similar thing. And I think in Punch Drunk Love, what works so well is just sort of letting him be that brilliant in a movie that is a little bit more grounded. And yeah, I completely agree that that's his absolutely with a bullet best performance up until Uncut Gems, and probably the best movie he's ever been in, I would say. But at the same time, I do think there is a certain element to his early comedies, like Billy Madison, that is just so engaging that really, really spoke to me as a teenager or as a elementary schooler, I would say. And also, as I've revisited them, still kind of works despite everything going against it in a way.
It's interesting because Paul Thomas Anderson is like a purported big fan of Adam Sandler, and so like his making of Punch Drunk Love was like a combination of being overwhelmed by Magnolia and like I just want to make like my version of a Sandler comedy, which I think is brilliant. It's actually my favorite PTA film, like of his whole canon. I love Punch Drunk Love a lot. And yeah, it's interesting that he always plays someone who, like Alicia mentioned earlier, like verges on being like problematically mentally challenged. Like his like, especially in Huby Halloween, which was one of my questions that I wanted to ask you guys, is like, is he like trying to be mentally challenged, or is he like, where is the line between like just stupid and like actually like could be offensive to like that community? And I'm not the one to answer that, I guess. Maybe none of us are, but I didn't know if you guys had any thoughts on that, because when his voice started, I was like, God. So like, because he does the voice, and then he also does that vomit bit at the beginning, and I was like, I'm going to hate this, but then I didn't. So I don't know. Did you guys have any thoughts on his voice in particular or his portrayal?
Yeah, I don't. No, yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is a question that can be answered. Yes. Yeah. It definitely enters your mind, and that kind of affects the way you watch it. But yeah, I don't know.
I mean, who here's a question. Who else is doing it like Sandler? Like, who else is doing such an over-the-top, stupid character? Like, every other comedy I feel like that I've seen recently takes itself seriously in a way. Like, it wants to be a comedy, and it also wants to be good art, I think. Like, I think that's like a pretty common thing nowadays. Like, the sort of like era of studio dumb comedies is over, but Sandler like keeps it moving. And I do respect a certain like his I guess his propensity for doing something dumb and being ridiculous and being okay with being ridiculous. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think that does make a lot of sense. And like, kind of to loop back to your original question about why this works better than the rest of his stuff he's been doing in the 2010s. Like, he's kind of played a character in a lot of the Netflix movies that he's put out that is literally just like the exact same person he is in real life, which is a guy who is kind of not giving a shit about anything and just like mailing it in and like here just, for the paycheck. I mean, that's kind of what Murder Mystery is. That's definitely what The Do-Over is. And like Sandy Wexler, kind of the same, where it's like, that's not what Sandler is good at, I don't think. And we mentioned Punch Drunk Love and Uncut Gems, which are like probably the two most acclaimed performances of his, which are so big and like out there. And kind of having him step into a role like that in Huby Halloween, where it's like, even if the movie isn't always great around him, he is always like completely committed to it. And I think that is what really makes the difference for me, where it's like, you can tell, and like Sandler wrote this movie as well, like you can tell he cares, I think, a lot more about this one than he did about the previous ones. And whether that is like a rejuvenation of like working with the Safdies and doing Uncut Gems and like getting all this acclaim or not, or whether it's just like some random bullshit, I don't know what it is, but like it feels like there's a different level of energy and a different level of commitment that is coming from Sandler in Huby Halloween versus like all of the trash he's put out this whole decade. The grown-ups too.
I do have to preface it with, I have not seen like essentially any of Sandler's comedies. I haven't seen Happy Gilmore, I haven't seen Billy Madison, haven't seen Click, haven't seen, I think I've literally only seen Murder Mystery and this, and so maybe something was like refreshing and new to me here that like all of y'all are like, this is not anything new or fun. But it made me want to, I borrowed a Happy Gilmore DVD from my girlfriend, so I'll watch that soon. But there are some like really great comedic bits in this movie that I want to go over because I was cracking up on them and I want to see if y'all were too. That soup can utility belt, that was great. That was so funny because he does the first thing, which is like sucking the balls into the thing, and you're like, what on earth was that? That's so weird. And then it just keeps on one-upping itself until it's a grappling hook that he can use. And it's like, man.
I enjoyed that, like, the final part of that, where it ends up, spoiler alert, saving the day, is like, I expected there to be some sort of like jet of water or some sort of like mechanism that extinguishes the match, but instead it's like 2 drops of leftover like pea soup or whatever that he got from the diner that happened to land like directly onto the match in midair. I would say that kind of thing is this movie's strength, is like shit like that. That just makes
I also love like the one like joke where I feel like it hit me the hardest is, I don't even remember what it was, but it's the time with his little canteen thing where he's like, he doesn't have like a way to fix whatever problem came across, and he's like, why wasn't that in my thermos? It's kind of like what you're thinking, like that probably would have been in the thermos if everything else was, and it just comes out and actually says it. Like yeah, everything around that was cracking me up.
Devin, tell us why the canteen was the worst thing of all time, the worst movie prop you've ever seen.
Well, I was actually going to say, I was happy that they had so much prop comedy. It added at least some variability in there. I was going to say, like, the thermos and then the T-shirts that his mother is wearing throughout
I want
the
them
film.
all.
Those were fine. I actually didn't really hate those all that much. The moment that Arjun was talking about was actually, I actually kind of smiled at that,
Yeah, it's physical comedy that I think is a lost art, and we'll talk about it in Wolf of Snow Hollow, because I think there are a lot of similarities between this and Wolf of Snow Hollow, and one of them is physical comedy. I think that that's not like what I was saying with, I think that comedies now tend to be more intellectual. I think that goes along with like the loss of seeing a man like grapple into a tree and do a backflip, and like that's funny. Like that's slapstick. That's something that like I think is easy to turn your nose out, like, turn your nose up to, and that's something that I definitely turn my nose up to a lot of the time. but I think it's good to just like sit back and be like, oh, a man slipping on a banana peel, comedy, like that. There's something wholesome for some reason to me about that.
Well, just in the sense that this was kind of like a mystery movie, because I also found this to be pretty funny. Like, what were your guys' thoughts? Like, did you predict who the killer was going to be, and what did you find that funny? Because for some reason, like, despite there not being any actual jokes around that, I was cracking up when that reveal happened.
I thought that was a pretty good reveal. I was not expecting it. I might be a dum-dum, but I thought that was pretty smart. And I also really enjoy, I mean, that whole, like, section where it's like, Ray Liotta actually hates him because he's jealous, was like, yeah, okay. But the phrase sex hope in that scene, for some reason, made me, like, cackle for 2 minutes straight. Yeah, I liked the mystery element.
I thought the mystery was actually pretty good. I thought it was a lot stronger than the comedy. That was really the only thing that kind of kept my attention through, because the jokes just weren't really working. So like actually trying to like deduce what was going on, because so much weird shit happens in this movie. I'm sure we'll get into it. We have to talk about Steve Buscemi. We have to please just take a moment to talk about him doing basically a Gollum impersonation the entire movie. But yeah, actually, I thought the mystery was pretty solid. I like the reveal at the end. I thought it was nice.
Let's my thoughts on the mystery are that it's like it wasn't the focus of it, and it was a nice backdrop to like always kind of keep you on your toes. But Steve Buscemi, that's a good point. We should talk about Steve Buscemi, because I mean, I'm assuming that you guys agree that he's just a treasure. I'm gonna take that, and I'm gonna just assume that. And if you disagree, don't tell me, because I don't want to know. I love Steve Buscemi in everything that he does, and I was so hyped to see him in this, because I don't think I knew that he was in it, and his whole like character arc, starting with just being like a kind of quirky neighbor to finger gun pointing at Sandler's mom, killed me. I'm glad that they let Steve Buscemi, like, maybe not let, he does comedy all the time, but he was really just sending it. He was throwing 100-mile-per-hour fastballs in this movie, and I was a big fan.
Yeah, he was my favorite part. I'm not saying that the whole movie like should have been him, but like the way this movie was, he was 100% the best part for me. Just like the sporadic, like he would keep coming up and you'd be like, yeah, I think I know what is gonna happen here, but like what? And then he just kind of goes away again, and he comes back, and you're like, oh, like sure, and it builds in a fun way, and is so stupid, and I loved it.
Oh, sorry, Devin, were you gonna say something?
I was gonna say it's just definitely one of the more fun subplots that's going on throughout the movie. There are a lot of subplots here, and I was actually getting concerned like midway through how they were going to tie them all together, because they just all didn't seem to connect in any way. But that one was my favorite one to keep up with. I was always just wondering, like, where is Steve? Like, what is he up to right now? And then like the whole like dog, like where like Adam Sandler thinks he's the dog running around. Fantastic. I actually thought I was going to see Adam Sandler murder a dog because of a false assumption.
Yeah, the subplots, like, I mean, for me, it was like there were so many characters, and I really didn't really know like who any of them were. Especially near the beginning, we kept being introduced to like different children, and I was like, who are these kids, and like who do they belong to, and like why are there so many kids? And then like they all kind of belong to Julie Bowen, who also Julie Bowen in this is like beyond manic. She's insane. I don't know how to describe like the way that she's behaving and talking in this, but it's like unhinged. And I don't know if I like enjoyed it. I guess it fits the movie, right? Because that's the whole movie, what I just described. But like she's insane.
It's almost like a meta commentary on Sandler's, like a lot of his movies is just like a hot woman inexplicably attracted to him, like out of his league, and they want him, and her commitment to that is so extreme because she's just like, I'm in love with you and I want you, and that's like there's something that is almost like commentary like that for me, that he's just like, yeah, this is how it is.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to sit with that one because my only thought was, fuck, another woman who is inexplicably in love and head over heels for Adam Sandler, despite being like 10 times out of his league.
And then we have Kevin James, who is in every single movie with the exact same sort of dynamic. Yeah.
Oh my god. I did like have a thought kind of, I've been thinking about what you said earlier about like who is doing the type of comedy Sandler is, and like I had three names that have come to my mind over the past like 20 minutes. Like I think one hand in a way like Melissa McCarthy kind of is. I think Steve Carell certainly is, and like that's kind of the name that came to mind, and also Andy Samberg. But I also think a lot of those are more grounded in reality. Like thinking about Popstar, for example, like such a like a direct commentary on like the stupidity of real life, which is like not something I don't think Sandler ever touches, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure I feel like I'm not sure that Adam Sandler has ever tried to give like commentary on any social issue like through his comedy, whereas I think you can.
Hey, don't mess with the Zohan. Come on.
The Zohan? What is that a reference to?
To the Zohan.
The film. Don't mess with the Zohan.
Oh. Over my head.
Ouch, you're a filmmaker?
It's like it's abstractly a 9/11 commentary from 2009 about Adam Sandler as a Middle Eastern hairdresser who comes to the United States. I thought it was terrible when I first watched it, but I've had two people recently recommend it to me, and I saw it in like an essay about how it was actually like a brilliant commentary on post 9/11 America. So definitely on my list of things to revisit, and I think it is on Netflix.
All right, noted. I on Popstar though, Arjun, this is kind of just a tangent, but I still haven't seen that movie, and I know that your love for that movie is like extreme. And Alicia, your face makes me think that you think the same way. So we need to have like a special one-off episode of watching that. And
I have the DVD, and you have like 10 minutes for me. I'll come and drop it off someday.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. Zohan on Netflix, by the way. So we can.
Okay.
We could have a Zohan Popstar double bill.
Oh my god. I was thinking like Zohan Borat. Seems like it would be yeah.
Honestly, yeah.
One final question before we pivot to Wolf of Snow Hollow. Is this a new entry into the Hocus Pocus Halloween Town, generally like fun comedy with like Halloween elements that isn't horror? And yet whether the answer to that is yes or no, I wanted to ask you guys if we'll ever have, is the era of holiday films that play on TV every whatever around the holiday and everybody watches them and everybody knows them, is that era coming to an end? Will kids nowadays like choose to stream Halloween Town or Hocus Pocus during the Halloween season, or are we like the last bastion of kids growing up on cable who all watch the same things?
I think like it's not a classic, but
yeah. Yeah, I assume that it will be mostly forgotten, which is totally fine. It was great for the moment, and by the moment I mean like, yeah, literally just making me feel like, especially being in LA, like making me feel like it's fall, and like the color palette, and I was just like making cookies while I watched it. And it's a great thing for right now, but I doubt that like even in a few years it'll achieve any sort of like, I mean, cult status at best, or just like kind of having it on at worst. But in terms of your larger question, like I think we'll still see a similar thing with streaming. Because, like, what we grew up with on TV, we watched regularly on TV, like, as the years passed. And I think that, like, what kids now are growing up with on streaming will do the same thing. I think that, yeah, like, they will, like, the question I guess that you're asking is, like, if with TV something is just kind of on and you, like, allow yourself to fall into it, but with streaming you have to, like, hand pick it. But I think that already people who are, like, native streamers use streaming in that way, where they just kind of, like, they will deliberately pick something that isn't a masterpiece, or, like, just something to, like, a comfort movie or something to have on while they're, like, folding their laundry or whatever. So yeah, I think that that'll continue to happen, hopefully.
If Huby Halloween had come out in, like, 2003, do you think that it would be in that canon? I think it could be. Maybe it's in my personal canon.
No, I think so.
I kind of agree. Like, if it was in theaters especially, I think it would have had a much stronger reaction than just, like, everybody sort of secluded alone. Like, comedies, especially broad comedies like this, I think are, like, meant to be seen in a packed audience. And, like, kind of to your last point too, like, maybe this is too cynical of a take, but, like, every classic from the past of holiday sort of lore, whether it be Halloween or Christmas, is, like, becoming a franchise and getting remade over and over again. So I think, like, yeah, I think it'll keep happening, and Netflix kind of seems like the perfect place for that. Like, especially with Christmas movies, it seems like every year there's, like, 5 Netflix Christmas movies that drop that become, like, a thing for, like, 3 weeks. And whether those become, like, classics, I don't know, but I think, like, the holiday movie brand will stay strong through streaming services because there's just, like, too much demand for it. People love this shit.
You're so right. Like the Netflix, like the Christmas Prince or whatever, like those movies are
Christmas,
like,
that's the one I was thinking of.
yeah, like, in essence they're Hallmark movies,
Klaus.
but they put them on streaming and people still watch them not only once but as the years go on. So I feel like that's a testament.
Yeah, do you remember
to...
that tweet? It was like somebody watched The Christmas Prince like 150 times, and it had been like 3 weeks since it had come out.
Oh my god!
Like, someone did the math, and it would have had to been like almost spending your entire waking time just like watching The Christmas Prince over and over again on one Netflix account.
I hope they're still with us.
Devin, did you have any final jabs you want to throw at Huby Halloween, or any? Did we change your mind on any of it, or any final words?
You'll never sneak this past me. They tried to imply that Ray Liotta is a pedophile in the movie, and I will never forgive it for that. Do you guys remember this?
Wait. The
they
girl
snuck
that
in and just like left it hanging.
The girl from Ant Farm is supposed to be a high schooler, and he's like hitting on her.
I thought that she was supposed to be like a teaching assistant at the elementary school.
I don't think that's
I thought she
correct.
was a teacher too. I think she was a teacher.
I think you're right, actually.
It's a questionable age difference for sure.
For sure, problematic. He's definitely canceled. That's without a doubt. But I don't know if it was illegal.
Ray Liotta, by the way, what happened to his career, man? Goodfellas, and then what else?
Did you not like the B movie?
Oh my god, wait, who is he in the B movie?
He's Ray Liotta. He plays himself. There's like a big trial, and Jerry Seinfeld is something with Ray Liotta. I don't know. It's been a while since I saw the B movie.
Man,
I think that's I think he's been playing Ray Liotta for like a long time now, and honestly, I enjoy it. So.
He gave us Goodfellas. You can do whatever you want to do after that, really.
Get the bag, yeah. Oh yeah, Marriage Story, right?
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's good at Marriage Story.
I hated that movie, so I'm not gonna talk. But I think he was good at it.
Oh damn, we're gonna talk about that.
Oh wow, Arjun! I don't know why, but I would not have expected that from you.
Interesting.
Yeah, different podcast.
Okay.
All right, I have in our what have you been watching recently? I have another Bomback film that I watched, so we can reopen that later.
I've got another Liotta film, so we can cross over.
Oh, perfect. All right. So we're gonna pivot to another horror comedy. This is the first time this podcast has done a double billing, so this is exciting because I think there are a lot of comparisons that you can draw between these films.
Yeah.
I want to set it up with Wolf of Snow Hollow this might be the closest. I personally loved watching this film. I had a blast with it, and I think it was the closest I have had since March of replicating the theater experience. And I think that had a lot to do with my enjoyment of this movie. Because I had a lot of problems with it, and we'll get into it. I think there's like a whole like list of questions I have about plot and about like editing, and like I have a lot of, we'll get to that. But on its surface, I enjoyed the hell out of it because I watched it with my whole quarantine bubble, like my girlfriend and my roommates and a friend that lives on his own that has joined our quarantine bubble. And this is the first time that we've gathered all of us together to watch a movie. And it's maybe the most I've laughed at any 2020 film. I have like a list of like 20 different times where I just was crying laughing, like thinking it was so funny. And I have some problems with it structurally, and we can get into that, but how I'll set it up is that I personally like had a really fulfilling experience watching it on like my big screen, you know, living room TV with a ton of friends laughing at it the whole time. But yeah, what did you guys think of Wolf of Snow Hollow? Devin, obviously you didn't watch it, so but Arjun and Alicia, what did y'all think?
Yeah, the gloves are coming off for me. I hated this movie, and like I loved Thunder Road, so I was coming in with really high expectations. And I think Jim Cummings is great. He has like a tiny part in Greener Grass, which is one of my favorite movies from last year. Like absolutely hysterical. And frankly, I thought he was great at acting in this movie. And I thought like his filmmaking choices, like he is such a talented filmmaker, and I can't wait to see whatever he does next. I just thought the script in this movie was so bad. I pretty much like did not get into any character outside of his own character, and even then like did not think he wrote a great character for himself. Like I was so confused at so much, and like I don't know, I really did not vibe with this movie. And maybe like it was the sort of high expectations coming into it, because I thought Thunder Road was so fantastic, hilarious, super empathetic in a way that I think this movie really wasn't at all, and was really just let down in a lot of ways.
Alicia, how do you break this tie?
I had so much fun. I had a lot of fun. I do have issues with it. I guess kind of in terms of structure, but more in terms of character, and not even in the sense that I lacked empathy for like many of the, especially the main character, Jim Cummings' character, because I kind of enjoyed the more biting, no pun intended, like take on it. But I thought the jokes were so funny that he just does, he does what he does so fucking well. He's just like such a unique performer and writer, and the kind of like moments in which I laughed and like my response to them, I feel like the most recent thing that I watched that I can compare it to is Tangerine. It's like these scenes where like people are like addressing conflict with each other that reveals kind of like larger issues with the characters and like with things in general. And also like some of what they're talking about is serious, but the way that it's happening is so funny and chaotic in like the best way. I mean, I love, like, speaking of Screwball, I love Screwball, and I feel like that's the sort of vibe that I get. But yeah, no, I had so much fun, and like I love nothing more than like low budget horror comedies like this. For some reason they just get me in such a like vibe, and it was perfect for my Saturday night. So yeah.
Alicia, I'm super with you. Like low budget horror comedy is just the best. That is
even when they're not even that good. Just for some reason, like my heart, yeah. Yes,
100%. There are like, I think the best part about this movie for me is some deliveries of lines. I have a list, but it's not all from Jim Cummings. Like he has some great lines, like in the library when the library wakes him up, he's like, "Oh, fuck you," and just like goes off. That had me dying. And then later in the,
he says like, "Who would want to throw a bottle at a cop?"
Yes. Yeah, the like, if that had been another member of my team, they would have shot you. Like, that was like, oh, so funny. And that's another, like, we can go into like how this movie treats cops, because like I think that's a pretty important topic to discuss in 2020. And I was worried. There's a line at the beginning that was like, if you don't want people to complain about policing, you do better police work. And I was like, oh God, this is gonna be like, in defense of cops. But I should have realized after watching Thunder Road that he is like lampooning the stereotype of angry, repressed, like cop who needs control over everything. And all of the police in this movie are kind of bumbling and not really clear, unsure of what they're doing. And there's that beer bottle line, there's that shooting line. It's like very clearly like a biting sort of thing at police, not necessarily police brutality, because we don't see that, but we do see police incompetence.
I think that's really true, and I think I definitely liked a lot of that throughout the whole movie. But I think specifically with regards to his main character, John Marshall, I think was his name. Like with regards to John, who was played by Jim Cummings, I feel like most of the movie was meant to lampoon him in that way and sort of paint him as this sort of incompetent and like repressed, angry male cop. But I felt like the sort of arc that it gives him and the end specifically, which really left me with a bad taste in my mouth, is kind of forgiving almost, like without really earning any redemption. I feel like he sort of gets a redemptive arc. And like that last scene in particular with him like walking past those two men who make a comment about like the gymnastics team moving down the hall, and him like, hearing it and then walking away is sort of like meant to be like a step of like growth. And it's almost like, what the fuck? Like, I don't feel like it's really like earned. And I think maybe that's why I hated it, which is what I said earlier. It's probably like too strong, because like there's a lot I really loved with this movie. It's just like I don't feel like the commentary that I feel like was there in a lot of it really landed for me at all.
So I think that last bit about being redemptive for him, I almost want to think that it's, or at least I thought while watching it, that it's still lampooning him, and he doesn't really have a redemption, because that's such a tiny ass thing to not beat the shit out of a college kid. Like, that is his growth, because throughout the movie you see him get in these violent altercations, which is a part of the movie's physical comedy. Like when he just like smacks the coroner guy. Oh God, comedy. But I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to push back on you on that, because I mean, you see at the end he doesn't be the sheriff like that he wants to be. He doesn't replace his dad that is his whole goal. And that between Robert Forster, which we'll talk about Robert Forster, rest in peace. But that conversation between Robert Forster and John, where Robert Forster's like, if you want some leadership in here, be a leader. And he's just like, yes, sir, whatever, sir. And then Robert Forster like bucks at him. And then Jim Cummings is like, great moment. Love you, Robert Forster. But also, he doesn't get to be the cop that you think he's on the like redemptive train to be. Like he gets beat out by a better person for sheriff, and he has some like clearly like issues that are unresolved, but he does get to have that like, okay, he's probably back on the wagon, and he does not beat the shit out of a college kid. I think because his character hits some pretty low lows. Like I don't think that he ever hits the high.
I think that's true, but in the sense that like the main arc of like the mystery of the story is him like pushing back against everybody making these like crazy like, oh, it's a werewolf claim, and he's like, no, a human must have done this, blah blah. And like in the end, sort of his sort of crazy angrily yelling at everybody and his paranoia sort of turning out to be true in a way, and then him eventually like solving the case, even though he kind of like stumbles upon that solving of the case. And like I don't remember, was it him or was it her who ends up shooting the werewolf? It was him, right? Or
she shoots it to kind of disarm it, but then he shoots it when it's down to like 5 different times to make sure it's dead.
Right, like the Jimmy Tatro shoot it through the face till you can see the ground through its face line or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I do see what you're saying, and like I think most of the commentary on his character works really well. It's just like the sort of ending that we get was unsatisfactory for me. But I do see what you're saying, and I think a lot of it is Jim Cummings being a phenomenal actor, and he really sells a lot of it just by being so farcical in so many of those scenes, just like playing it so over the top. It really worked, and like his acting worked a lot better than the script did for me. And yeah, I agree with a lot of what you're saying, even though it didn't totally work.
In terms of his arc, I agree with you both, and I feel like I kind of have a foot on each side. Like, I think that with the end, like, I can see the point that his growth isn't earned, but at the same time, I don't know if it's really saying much at all, if it's really like meant to build some grand arc. But at the same time, it's like, should it have leaned further into that if that was the commentary it was trying to make? But yeah, at the same time, I loved his performance so much. And like, I do feel a little bit of like, why are we doing kind of the same thing as Thunder Road? But I mean, in terms of the like troubled father sort of thing. But at the same time, this was kind of a different. I feel like I'll need to rewatch Thunder Road, but this felt like a different spin on it, where it's kind of a more pessimistic side of that character, where he doesn't really have the same amount of growth or the same amount of like owning up to his failures and really changing much about it at all. And like in the end, his relationship with his daughter, it's still kind of there. She says, "I love you," without looking at him, you know? So I think that says a lot. But it's Ricky Lindholm's character who kind of becomes like her surrogate parent in a way, like steps in to take over that role, which I think we should address like her performance. I thought she was really great and should have been given even more to do. But I really liked her. Yeah.
One of my questions related to that, Alicia, was can Jim Cummings play any other character? Because he does angry, maladjusted cop who flies off the handle often, but is ultimately good-hearted. He does that well. He does that really, really, really well. But can he do anything else? Like, Greener Grass, I need to see. Does he play a similar character there?
He's a tiny role in it. Like he's kind of a throwaway character. Like he doesn't have one of the main roles. So I kind of am interested in that too. But he does that so well. Like
Yeah.
I have not seen Greener Grass, and I have been wanting to for so long because I'm such a like Good Neighbor stan, and that cast looks amazing, and I didn't know he was in it. But like, yeah, I have so much confidence that he could do lots of other characters. But I mean, yeah, I've only seen this one, or two sides of the coin, but I don't know, we'll see. I don't like mind it a lot for right now, but I might mind it more as time goes on.
Yeah, because I think that this movie does enough differently. It's the same brand of comedy, but it does enough differently where Thunder Road, I agree with you, Arjun, and Alicia, I forget if you said you had seen it and liked it, but I think that Thunder Road is like a great film, and it was like very inspiring as like an aspiring filmmaker to be like, look at what this guy did with like a shoestring budget, and look at how creative he can be, and look at what a moving story you can tell without much, budget. And I thought he really blended comedy and drama well in that film. And one of my questions to y'all here is the horror comedy blend. Did it work for you? When it would go from something horrific to something hilarious, did it in a Bong Joon-ho-esque way, did it work for you guys? Or was it something that was a little jarring? I have my thoughts on, I thought the horror and comedy worked well, but the drama, I think, lagged. In like, horror was great, comedy was great. The drama, I think, in the last 20 minutes, it became far more dramatic than it was either of the other two. And it kind of, it didn't rub me the wrong way, but I think it lost me just like a tad.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think from a purely filmmaking perspective, the horror was awesome, especially with, I don't think it was like a huge budget on this film, and I'm sure most of it went to like there were some really high profile actors in this, but like the creature design and sort of the drama that he builds through the kills themselves and like the horror elements of it, I thought were awesome. And like he really is an amazing filmmaker, but I kind of was put off by like how little he seems to like care about like the victims in a way, or like, you know, we get like these little vignettes into their lives where like he touches upon, you know, like the ski instructor, for example. I mean, maybe that's just for the sense of like giving us like some red herrings into the story, but it also just so weird to like dip the toes into that and then sort of pull back and like not really give us any more of that. And like it almost felt like he didn't like care enough about the victims. Like, you know, at the end of the day, like you're saying, like it is like a comedy and it's like a 90-minute comedy, so there's only so much you can do, and I don't know how much of that got left on the cutting room floor, but it did kind of rub me off as much, or rub me the wrong way, I guess, as much as I really really loved the scenes themselves.
Yeah, I agree about the horror and the comedy working together really seamlessly and in like such a fun and satisfying way. And then the drama, yeah, I do think it kind of jarringly like delved into the drama in like what you said, the last 20 minutes or so, in kind of a weird way. Um and also that like I thought the horror, like I'm not usually actually like scared by horror movies. I feel like there are like a select few horror movies that scare me, but and this, like the actual film itself didn't scare me, but I mean the concept of just like, you know, like being a woman and just like being alone somewhere at night and like the kind of lingering fear with that sort of thing was pretty effective for me at least. And I enjoyed the joke as well. That didn't seem pandering at all. Like it seemed genuinely funny, where he turns to like Ricky Lindholm and he's like, "Why is it always women?" And he thinks for a second. He's like, "You think women have been putting up with this shit since like medieval times, or what?" She just kind of stares at him.
Yeah, she is so good in that scene. She's just like deadpan is like.
But yeah, I would agree with both of you on the tonal front there.
I think the film has its own struggle, maybe not struggles, but it has the challenge of blending all these genres, a lot due to its runtime, because it is 84 minutes. It is a
sure.
quick watch,
Yeah.
which I think is exciting. I love those really quick, like bite-sized ones. But I also, I went back and forth so many times on whether or not I thought the editing was good or not, which, like, to bring it back to the Twitter discourse that was going on in film Twitter like a week or two ago, like what is good editing, what is bad editing? Because I thought there were some moments of brilliance of editing in this, where he chose for the second and third victims their like slasher scene where they're getting killed is cut together with the police finding the body and investigating the body. And I thought that was like a stroke of brilliance, where you get in between, you get these like horror, like segments, and in between you have Jim Cummings talking to one of his cop friends being like, "No, tell me how this was a hunter who didn't have a license. No, tell me, like really tell me." And it made you laugh, and it made you like go, "Ugh," when you see like something gross or horrific happen. And I thought that was great. But I also had some issues with just random cut things that are cut together where I wasn't sure what was happening, because things were moving so quickly that I just was confused. Like in the instance that I want to bring up is when who's the guy from American Vandal?
Jimmy
Tatro.
Yeah, his character.
I don't know what his character's name is.
Yeah, I don't remember. And his girlfriend, who I also don't remember their characters' names. They come out of the bar after having eaten and having gotten in that altercation with the guy who says the gay slur, and so I have the shots written down because I want to see if y'all can make sense of it. So they get into the verbal altercation, then they walk outside. You get a wide shot of them walking outside. You see the Jimmy guy look underneath his car with a phone flashlight. Then you get the wide shot again, and a car pulls up. The girlfriend gets into the car by herself, and then the car drives away. and then they're just back at their cabin. You get a throwaway line later where the Jimmy character's like, we've been through it, like talking to the cops. We've been through what happened. Like, I looked under the car and I had dropped my bags and blah, 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 blah. And that was like, I was like, oh, wait, was that why he was looking at under the car with your phone flashlight? It felt like they were clearly like shots that they took out.
I thought he was like trying to make sure that the guy who had gotten in the altercation with didn't like put glass or something underneath his tires or something when I first saw it, but I didn't notice that he brought it back up like a second time. That's so interesting.
It was like, there's stuff like that.
Well, I have another one that popped into my mind that was like really frustrating to me because like there's two mentions of Jim Cummings' his character, his mom dying earlier in his life, where it's like the girl is in the house and she's talking to him, and a lot of this might just be due to what you're saying, like the runtime being so short and like who knows what got cut out, but like she's talking to him and she's like, are you this way because your mom died when you were young? And then later he's like having a mental breakdown and he like screams, I'm an orphan, at the top of his lungs. I was so confused. I'm like, am I missing something here? Like, is this somehow like playing a bigger part into this than I'm realizing? I don't know. Like, I kind of agree. There were certain parts of it where it just felt so like jarring that I was a little bit confused by.
Yeah, I don't even remember the like looking under the car thing. Like, yeah, my first thought would just be like checking to see if his tires are slashed or something. But I don't remember him bringing it up late. Maybe it's meant I mean, you get a sense that they're trying to set him up as like a red herring. But
right.
Yeah, but in terms of the like Jim Cummings' mom thing, I understand where you're coming from. And then at the same time, like it almost feels like another joke. It like a more kind of sinister Keystone Cops sort of thing where it's like every terrible thing that they do, like supposedly could be traced back to like some childhood trauma that they just like really need to get over or like acknowledge or they're just a shitty person doing shitty things and they blame it on, you know, whatever in their past. Right. But that could be a stretch, so.
Well, that line did play comedically for me when the daughter
yeah, for me too.
It was a moment where we had to pause the screen because we were all laughing over the next couple lines of dialogue because we were just like, what? Why would this? And his response to that is like, no. Like his like timing with his like, no, you're no. It gets me, man.
Well, I'm glad then because like maybe I was just misreading it because I was laughing too, but I thought I was laughing at something that was like very unintentional. Like, what the fuck is going on here? So if it was meant to be played as comedy in just like a sort of purely like absurd way, like I do kind of get that. I'll revoke my criticism because I was cracking up at that.
I thought it was because his delivery was so like such a Jim Cummings type of thing that felt distinctly. And I also feel like those scenes serve to form a lot of empathy towards the daughter, and overall, like for me, like we kind of talked about before, build this larger picture of like a protagonist who is mostly unsympathetic. He kind of sucks at the beginning and then he sucks maybe a little bit less at the end, and everyone in his life is like kind of suffering for it, but like it felt mostly deliberate to me. I think that like the daughter seems like a rational person. I mean, she's a teenager, but like the shit that her dad does, like when he's like, you're like interfering with like this investigation, as she's like half naked in the middle of the street, like bleeding from the skull, and she's like, are you gonna ask me if I'm okay? And he's like, no, which is hilarious, but also like, whoa. I mean, that to me that kind of summed up the entire dynamic. Like he's a mess, and I think we can view him as a mess even at the end. Yeah.
Sorry, I had to get my laptop plugged in. Hope that wasn't too distracting.
Yeah, I like that delivery from her too, where she's like, "I need to go. I'm bleeding from the skull."
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that at that point that she was like that injured. I thought that she was just like kind of hurt and her
I
dad
know.
wasn't caring about it. But then she like delivers that line so perfectly to the EMT.
Let me ask y'all. We asked about the mystery of Hubie Halloween. Did the mystery work for you guys here? And I will start it off by saying, like, not really. But it didn't matter. Like, that's not what I was watching the movie for. I thought that's what I was gonna watch the movie for. But once I got into it, I was like, no, this is hilarious. I'm just gonna let it vibe. And one thing that my whole group was confused about was like, wait, who is this guy? This like the guy at the end? Like we were all like, wait, was he earlier in the movie? Like I don't remember. And I rewatched it today, and he's the Airbnb renter, and he is interviewed during the montage interviewing scene. But it doesn't like super set it up well, or maybe not well, maybe it's just not obvious and I'm dumb and I didn't catch on to it, and maybe you guys did, which is also totally possible. But all of like us who were watching it together were like kind of like taken by surprise by like him just coming out of nowhere. And I think he has different facial hair in every scene he's in, and my stupid brain did not connect that these three people were the same character, because he has a beard in one, he has like a stubble in the next, and he's clean shaven at the end. What is that about?
He also
Since you
he
watched it a
really
second
has
time-
like an sorry.
Oh no, go ahead, my bad.
He just has a very unsettling face. He's a very creepy looking person.
He reminded me of the giant in
yeah.
Twin Peaks.
He reminds me a lot of that guy from, he was in Palm Springs, and he's like got a YouTube channel, Connor O'Malley, but like a balding version of him. It's like
Love Connor
so
O'Malley.
unsettling. Yeah. But I was just gonna say, there is like a mention somewhere other in the movie about taxidermy, right? Like I vaguely remember outside of the interrogation scene being like a drop line about like some taxidermist like
Yeah, it was, to me it wasn't like a typical mystery structure in the way that you sprinkle breadcrumbs throughout. It was like they dropped one big crumb kind of near the beginning with the taxidermy thing. He's like scanning the book at the library and yells at Ray the librarian, and then like we drop like another big crumb like right before the reveal with the little taxidermy tool, I guess, which I was also like confused about how that like got to Jimmy Tater's house. I
or like how that was like the giveaway to how he was the killer. I couldn't really
like
put that
how
together.
did she, I mean, we did see that Ricky Lindholm's character had been looking at like, I think at Jim Cummings' scans of the taxidermy books, but I don't know how like she would have made the I mean, well, I guess she's smarter than him and made the connection knowing that that guy was a taxidermist and whatever, and like she, I guess, sort of deduced it and he kind of fell into it, Jim Cummings, I mean. But yeah, and so I think the mystery there is a little muddled, but at the same time I didn't really care because I was surprised, and then it like kind of half made sense at least, and it wasn't like the focus. So
I think the implication with that tool was that werewolf man who is the taxidermist dropped it at the scene of the first victim, and then they packaged it thinking that it was her thing, and then he was like, when he's getting her stuff, he's like, this isn't her thing, and they're like, wait, that wasn't her thing? Whose could it be?
You're so right.
But why did he bring a seam ripper with him to his first victim?
Well, probably because he has to like get out. No, I guess no. Maybe, I don't know.
It's
Never
just
mind.
a taxidermist's always ready.
Yeah, I mean stuff like that. It's like that's almost why I love horror comedy, is because it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter that the like maybe if the mystery had been like perfectly wrapped in like, by the end of it I was like, oh my god, like maybe that would transcend the genre in a way, and I'd be like, this is one of my favorites of all time or whatever. But I didn't think it really needed to be an amazing mystery. for it to be amazingly enjoyable, which was kind of my take on it.
What about the relationship between the Jim Cummings and his dad? What did people think of that?
I think I'm super biased because I love Robert Forster with like all of my being, and I did like their relationship, and I thought they had some good scenes together. And I mean, maybe it's just tugging at my heartstrings with like Robert Forster trying his damnedest to, like, his character's trying his damnedest to be active, even though he's clearly like on death's door. And that was also Robert Forster filming this movie. And I thought that was actually pretty moving. And I think that they did a good job of setting up why Jim Cummings was so, like, his character had such an interesting relationship with his dad, because his mom left, and so he only has his dad growing up, presumably. And the town clearly loves and respects his father deeply, and he's clearly been this like great sheriff to this town. And Jim Cummings has a lot to live up to that he just really doesn't. And that's being a father to his daughter, that's being like good at his job, and that's being a leader to everyone around him. And I really liked their relationship. I wonder if there was meant to be more of a like final goodbye scene between them, or if that the intention was to just have him die off screen. But yeah, I liked it. Arjun, what did you think?
Yeah, no, can't hate on the great Robert Forster. I wasn't really a fan of like any of the sort of direct relationships to Jim Cummings' character. Just like it didn't really give too much attention to them as much as I would have wanted. Like, every time Robert Forster wasn't on screen, it was like, fuck, like, when can we get Robert Forster back? But like getting like a little bit more of Robert Forster, like playing an offshoot of his character in the third season of Twin Peaks, is like not going to complain about that. I thought he was wonderful, lovely.
Yeah, I thought he was great, and I thought that their final scene together was super affecting in like the way that you don't really know if it's goodbye in the moment. You like kind of have to, and I think that the characters do too. And then he's just gone, and I thought that was pretty good. Like that pan to the bed, that silent pan, I was like, ouch.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and it's after it's. Sorry to interrupt. It's just good. That pan is also after that hilarious milk scene, and he where he like beats like the boyfriend of the daughter, and then he comes in to visit his daughter at the hospital, like eyes maced, covered in milk, and he's just like, "Hey, how are you doing?" Like, that kills me. And then it flips it right on its head by like, look at this empty bed. And that's an example, I think, of this movie really blending like all, blending those genres together. I think Jim Cummings does a good job generally. With that where it worked for me. I'm sorry, what were you saying before I interrupted?
No, the father-son relationship thing, and like providing motivations for why John like does what he does and acts the way he does, like I think ties into also, I think there is some ambiguity there, hopefully purposeful, in terms of like kind of piggybacking what Arjun was saying, how John, it's unclear whether he wants to catch this person because he feels like it's a personal failure or because he feels for the victims, It's like, we really get that dad side of things where he's trying to like fill big shoes, and he just feels like a fuck up as a father. But then we get those kind of dreamy flashback sequence things of him at the funerals, clearly like kind of looking not like sad, but really frustrated and like bouncing his leg with impatience, like frustrated that he hasn't caught this guy yet. And then you see like him kind of in the funeral, imagine like seeing on the side like the victims' bodies and like the super bloody crime scenes and whatever. And so like there, it's definitely like, what are his motivations? Is this selfless, or is it selfish, or is it both? And I thought he was good at portraying that.
Mm. I think that that what was I gonna say? I just totally blanked. Oh no. Quick pivot. What else is on my list of things to talk about? Oh, I really liked his opening monologue, which is he's like riffing on his own like monologue, the opening monologue in Thunder Road, where he's like at an alcoholics meeting, and I think it sets the tone for it really well because it's an alcoholics meeting. It's not necessarily something to be taken lightly, and then he has just some great like comedic moments in it. The line, she's the daughter of my mother. I could never say a crossword against her, but she's a really fucking piece of work.
And him imagining like driving a car very slowly through her home, like destroying everything in its wake. And also in that opening monologue, like when he's like, being in AA, it's tough, but you got to stay focused. And right immediately after saying the word like focus, he like hears something upstairs and glances. It's just stuff like that. The timing is so unique and like impeccable, honestly.
That's screwball, like what you were saying. I think I hadn't thought of that, but I think you make a really good point where he's almost like taken his Girl Friday type of humor and just melting it into a 2020 version that has a lot of cynicism and anger in it, but it's still as funny. Devin, did you have any comments or questions about this film? Are you interested after hearing us talk about it?
Yeah, I was actually looking at buying it or renting it on Amazon, whichever way I can watch it. It sounds cool, but like from hearing this, it just kind of sounds like Thunder Road, but now there's like a monster. So I guess I'm intrigued in that sense.
I think it feels different. It feels like a horror comedy. I think it's worth checking out.
It's also, I think, very much riffing off of Fargo in a lot of ways, which like if I know, Caleb, I think you've seen Blow the Man Down, which is like one of my favorite movies of the year so far. And it's just like, I don't know, like I had such high expectations coming into it, and also like doing this double feature and like not expecting to like the latest Adam Sandler Netflix comedy a lot more than I liked the new Jim Cummings movie. Probably like stunted my feelings on it a little bit, but yeah, it's worth checking out for sure.
Definitely gonna do that. I really like Jim Cummings. I really appreciate everything he's doing and what he sort of represents in film right now. He's like the most indie of the indie people around. So yeah, I'll definitely look into it. I don't know if I have any questions because I just literally have no idea what like the entire time I was trying to figure out if like there was an actual werewolf or not based on how you guys were talking about it. I got my answer.
Sorry, I promise this is my last thing. What did you guys think of the score?
I wanted to talk about it. I loved it. I loved it so much. I thought that it was like almost like a fun throwback to like kind of horror-y, like it's fun, it's adventurous, it's fast-paced, it keeps the thing going, and it had some really good like horror-y riffs that felt like they were referencing stuff. Yeah, I really like this one.
Quick question. Did he make the score again, or did he actually get licensed music?
Did he score Thunder Road?
I don't think he
that was him.
did.
I'm pretty sure.
Let's see.
I thought there was.
I
I think it was
by-
a female composer, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
I could be mistaken.
There are a lot of women behind the making of this movie, actually. I think the cinematographer was a woman.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking. I could be mixing it up.
Yeah, I noticed it in the credits. I thought that was really cool. The art director is a woman. Casting is a woman.
I'm seeing some guy named Ben Lovett doing the score, I think. But yeah, I liked it a lot. I thought it had, fun kind of classic horror vibes, and at the same time, like very good, like comedic support in a lot of moments.
I definitely, my final word on it is that I definitely recommend it. I enjoyed just the absolute hell out of it. I think it'll be one that I revisit often. I think Thunder Road is a probably better movie, I think. But I think I'll probably watch Wolf of Snow Hollow more just because it feels like something that I'll want to revisit in Octobers to come. But definitely really liked it. Oh, one quick thing that I wanted to draw comparisons to Huby Halloween. Are these two characters who are very similar in that they're like offbeat and sort of like not really understood by everyone around them, and they have like this singular mission to protect other people and to be the defender against evil or danger, like in Adam Sandler's. But they're also very different because Huby is like, one thing I really enjoyed about Huby Halloween is that he is not hapless. Like, he could have easily been a hapless idiot who just like stumbles his way across a movie, but he's like got his utility belt. He's sniffing out danger. Like, of course he makes his stumbling mistakes, but he has like agency in a way that I feel like a dumb comedy a lot of the protagonists don't. Whereas Jim Cummings is almost the opposite, where he's like clawing at any sort of power or like control, and he just doesn't have it. And that's like the comedy of that character. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts comparing the two.
Yeah, I think Huby's I love like saying words like this in a serious tone. Like, his motivations are pretty like indisputably selfless. Like, he just keeps talking about how much he loves Halloween and he wants the entire town to be safe, and so he's taking on kind of like an authority role, but with the desire to like help people. And in John's case in Wolf of Snow Hollow, it's not quite as clear cut, but yeah.
Arjun, any thoughts on Huby and
Nothing
and
to
John?
add.
Or
Huby Dubois is a legend. Nothing but love for the king.
Maybe not like a comparison to Huby necessarily, but like how you said earlier that Sandler at one point in his career maybe represented male rage, but in like a comedic form. I feel like Jim Cummings has really taken that on, and it really works well as like sort of like a deconstruction for his characters, because we talk about like how he always plays a cop. These are people that clearly should not be cops. Like, you can like them as people, but they should not have weapons. They should not be trying to enforce the law. Like, I would trust Huby over any Jim Cummings portrayal of a cop any day.
Yeah, and like Huby's a savant too. Like, he's good at, as one of whatever, like Ray Liotta or someone says, like, he uses big words and he has his thermos, and like he's good at some things. But Jim Cummings, yeah, you do get the sense like he really shouldn't be in this position, and he's I mean, not talentless, but definitely not enough talent or intelligence to be where he is. And yeah, even when he like ends up solving the crime at the end, he's not the one who like really, like, Ricky Lindholm's character pieces it together first and kind of saves his ass. So
Yeah, and I think like Sandler and Cummings both aren't afraid to take on like super unlikable characters, but they're both such like charming actors who can kind of just make any role a little bit more likable, because you can't have a protagonist that's just totally despicable, and that's kind of what makes Uncut Gems work and be such a movie that so many people loved. I think is like Sandler being such a personable and charming guy despite playing just an absolute scumbag who has no redeeming qualities, and like you can't help but feel a little bit sorry for Jim Cummings, even though it's kind of the same thing, where it's like there is not really a single thing that is super redeemable to John Marshall, the cop, but you can't help but have a little bit of at least empathy for him.
pathetic but empathetic, I feel like, is what they both
I like
can
that.
do.
Nice. Well, it seems like we're kind of wrapping down this discussion. This has been a fun
sorry
one.
for this editing job you're gonna have to do.
Oh, it's
Ooh,
fun. It'll be fun. This was fun because I feel like Arjun and I have actually agreed on everything, and maybe Alicia and I have also continued to agree on everything, or have similar takes.
Except for
at
Enola
least.
Holmes, which you ducked out of at just the right
See,
time.
wait, I don't understand why you can view Huby Halloween as like a fun Netflix thing that literally just have like, are you kidding me? And Enola Holmes, which like has at least some sense of like trying.
Because we're all misogynist, Alicia, that's
That's
why.
all it has.
Great, we cracked it.
I don't know. I don't know if I could voice why exactly Enola Holmes left me with the distaste. I feel like Enola Holmes felt like canned studio, like teenage comedy, whereas the Huby Halloween just felt like something stupidly original. But
well, I also kind of get. I feel like most of my favorite movies are either like what I consider like really elevated or like utter trash. And anything in the middle is like disinteresting. So
yeah, and I also kind of like what was wrong with Enola Holmes in a lot of ways for me was like outside of Millie Bobby Brown and Cavill, like nothing really interested me with the movie too much. Whereas with Huby Halloween, like every supporting character came in and did like an amazing 10 minutes when they had it, like Leota, Maya Rudolph,
Tim Meadows.
Yeah, I was thinking the guy from Popstar. But yeah, like I don't know, Enola Holmes was kind of boring me in the off moments, which weren't just kind of like packaged like tropes. Whereas like Huby Halloween, every part that was kind of downtime was still like cracking me up.
That's fair.
Devin, any thoughts on Huby versus Enola? Any reason? Which one did you hate more?
Yeah, we're gonna have to bring you on for a movie you actually like at some point.
Yeah. That's why when Devin like kind of stepped in last minute to talk about Huby Halloween, and that's why when I texted you, I was like, you can watch Huby Halloween or Wolf of Snow Hollow. I would recommend Wolf of Snow Hollow, and here's my login info to do that. And you were like, no, I'll do Huby Halloween. I was like, he's gonna hate it. He's gonna hate it. You're right. That's true. Nice. Well, I think that wraps up this conversation. We can do a quick little like, what have y'all been watching? If you have anything fun to talk about. What have y'all been watching? Devin, you were watching Hills Have Eyes?
And recently put out a collection for 70s horror, so I've been making my way through that, which is had its ups and downs. Started with a very low point with the movie Trog. Don't watch it. Well, unless you want to like have a little bit of fun. It's kind of hilarious. But I watched that. Vampire Lovers, which surprised me a little bit. It's a very sexy movie if you're looking for that, I guess. And I think the other one I watched today was Let's Scare Jessica to Death, which is an interesting horror film about like mental illness, and like it's a very confusing film. I don't want to go like too in detail because it's like part of it is just like trying to figure out what the fuck is going on the entire time. But yeah, there's some good stuff in there. If you have like a subscription, I would recommend going through it.
I also checked out a Criterion horror, which was oh gosh, what was it called? It's early 80s, the something time massacre, the Sleepover Massacre, the what gosh, Slumber Party Massacre. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I should have been prepared with that. Yeah, that's a really interesting slasher because it's like written by a lesbian feminist theorist, and it's like directed by a woman, and it does some really interesting things with like the male gaze and what horror movies, like especially slashers, like what they need to have to be a slasher. And it's funny, it's funny in parts, and some really great camera work throughout that I really enjoyed. Listening to interviews is kind of depressing about it though, because like there are some like there's a locker room scene that's just so clearly like here's a bunch of naked women, and the Amy Holden Jones, the director, was like, that's the one part I look back on and really cringe at. But She got a lot of shit for directing that movie and having like those nude scenes in. She got like a lot of hate mail, a lot of people calling her like a disgrace to her gender and like all sorts of things. And her whole take was just like, look, that's the only way that this was getting made. Like Roger Corman was only going to give me money if I included this scene, and I fought to not have it, but like, look, it wouldn't have been made otherwise. And that's, everybody's got to have their start in the industry, and especially for a woman, like, this is how I can get mine. And so you got to respect it in a certain sense. But yeah, very interesting horror movie. I watched that, and then I also watched I've been watching Haunting of Hill House because I haven't seen it before. Loving that. I'm only on like 4 episodes in, but I think it's great, and I'm excited to watch Bly Manor. And then I watched Kicking and Screaming yesterday, Noah Baumbach's first film, which is the connection to Noah Baumbach that I promised earlier. And that movie like is good, and I really liked parts of it. It really made me like lament the fact that I didn't get to have a post-grad ennui. Like I just got whatever the fuck 2020 is. Like I didn't get to have like, oh, like what am I gonna do with my life? Like what is like, no, we got 2020. So yeah, that's what I've been watching.
I thought you were talking about like the Will Ferrell soccer movie, Kicking and Screaming. I was really confused for a second. Great movie, but
Kicking and Screaming, I have started it so many times. I've watched like the first like half or 3/4 so many times, but I find it like really exhausting. And I mean, I sort of appreciate that because like these people are supposed to be like it captures the annoying intellectualism really well. But it's hard to watch. But it's also funny that you talk about the like like the male gaze sort of locker room thing, because I saw Carrie at a drive-in last night, which, you know, starts with literally that exact sort of scene. And the whole movie, like, it just really, I feel like I need to read up on a lot of the, like, sexual politics there, because it's, like, obviously there's so much male gazy stuff. But at the same time, like, I get some gay vibes as well, and, like, there's just a lot going on. But overall, like, I love the movie so much. And it was really cool to see it in that setting, especially when things like ramp up at the end. And I'd forgotten how like beautiful of a movie it is visually. Just like great to look at. And I love John Travolta in the early days so much. My friend turned to me, she was like, "Are you into John Travolta like here like in this time?" And I was like, and then I was like silent for like a minute or so, and she was like, "Yeah, me too." So confusing time. I watched David Gordon Green's Halloween, which I didn't hate. I enjoyed it. It wasn't like amazing, but yeah. And then we're still working through our 3 shows on HBO, which are We Are Who We Are, Guadagnino's show, The Vow, the one about Nexium, and Lovecraft Country. So all of those are great. And also we started watching Emily in Paris because we're sadists, and it is just as terrible as everything you might have heard. The fashion looks like it's in a first season episode of Gossip Girl. Everything looks like 2009. Lily Collins' character is insufferable. And yeah, so... and I feel like it's kind of racist towards French people. So, yeah, we're almost done with that. Plan on watching the final 2 episodes tonight.
Can you be racist towards French people?
Well, yeah, I mean, well, it's just like, oh, French people are so, like, rude and mean. But then, like, the main character is horrible. And honestly, I'm, like, rooting for all the French people who hate her. So, yeah. Don't check it out. Netflix.
the Gossip Girl fashion is great. I don't want to hear that.
Well, yes, but like in Gossip Girl, not like in 2020 when this girl is supposed to be like some sort of fashion icon. Yeah. Yeah, I expected more from a Darren Star production, but
Yeah, I've been catching up with a lot of 2020 movies because I've been kind of a disappointing year, and like I've seen like 50 movies and like I don't like 35 of them. So I'm just like trying to like find some gems hidden here. Well, Never Really, Sometimes Always was awesome. I've been holding off on that because I was like, this is gonna be emotional. Like I'm not sure if I'm ready for it, but like no, you don't need to. Like it's a fantastic movie that isn't quite as like emotionally punishing as I would have expected. Like it is so good. I did cry, but it's really good. And Baby Teeth, which is like not a movie I really liked, but kind of seems like a star-making performance for Eliza Scanlen for me. Who, like, I mean, maybe she already is a star, although she hasn't been in that many things. Like, she was so good in Little Women in the little time that she got, but like, really,
And
she
Sharp
absolutely
Objects.
kills it. I haven't seen Sharp Objects. I'll have to add that because I heard she is also really awesome in that. So I'll have to add that because Baby Teeth, she, Ben Mendelsohn, and the woman from the Babadook is also really good. And it's not a great movie, like a lot of problems I thought, but Eliza Scanlen, like she's gonna be a fucking star. I love it.
I have an enormous crush on Ben Mendelsohn, and I've been meaning to watch Baby Teeth, so I guess I'll do it.
Also, my Ray Liotta plug. I just watched Something Wild, and it's awesome. Jonathan Demme does not miss.
True. All right. I think we've wrapped this one up. This might be our longest podcast to date, which is probably due to two films. But yeah, this was a good one. I think I was really looking forward to this episode, and I think it was fun.
What do we got on the dock next week?
What do we got on the dock next week? That's a good question. We haven't talked about it.
Doc, I don't know. It's something.
Oh, Trial of the Chicago 7 is coming out. Sorkin's new movie. So
I feel like there's no way that is a consensus either direction, so that should be exciting.
Yeah, that should be an interesting film. So we'll get that coming up. Devin, thank you so much for hopping on last second. We'll try to get you on one that you like. I promise. Let me know if anything's down the pipe that you're like interested in, and we'll hope to get you on that one. But yeah, guys, this was Huby Halloween. This was Jim Cummings' new film, The Wolf of Snow Hollow. I didn't have a quote of one of the movies to end it out, but
Boner donor? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the one. All right, guys, cool stuff.